Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. Patrick, a strange and lonely resident, lives in a mobile home at the back of an isolated trailer park. After a violent storm, a mysterious young woman appears at his door, seeking shelter from the elements. Yes, folks, this is our raw reaction review for You'll Never Find Me. And of course, I just want to kick things off by thanking the folks over at IFC Films and Shudder for sending this screener over for us to review. Yep, this is kind of becoming a normal thing for me to say, but this was something that we almost saw at Fantastic Fest. Yes, so this was another one that was on the options board. I don't know if there were virtual screeners at the time. I did not check, but I saw the reviews afterwards. Once we kind of died down a little bit, we were kind of getting into, the Splatterthon. I was looking back, seeing what people were thinking of the stuff we didn't get to see, and this one quite intrigued me because it was, an Australian horror film. And, we're big fans of those on this channel, of course. We love our Australian horror. And just the concept alone that they kind of use to describe it as being a kind of an intense, slow burn, it sounded something right up our alley for sure. And, circa, 9 months later, we get to sit here and finally watch it. And Luke, what did you think of You'll Never Find Me?
I'm a big fan of the slow burn thrillers a lot of the time. I know they're kind of divisive, especially for the horror audience. Sometimes people don't want to sit there, then they kind of want to get straight to the horror. But, going into this one, I didn't know too much about it. I didn't even watch the trailer for it. I just knew the synopsis, which is always kind of my thing lately. But going into this one, I got to say, really well done. From an acting standpoint, just from a visual standpoint, right out of the gate, I got to be honest, they really set the tone here. And yes, it is a slow burn, but I think they make use of everything that they have in terms of shot selections from the setting itself and from the acting standpoint. There is a lot of tension here.
Absolutely. Yes. This comes from a two-person team, both a writer and a director, like a director duo and just a singular writer here. The big thing I want to focus on that is, of course, Indiana Bell, who is the writer and one of the co-directors. This film, we said it's a slow burn. It's a contained thriller. It's all in one location. We do not stray from this mobile home, like we described in the opening there, at all. And I think that some of those films can be very hit or miss, but the thing that really carries that stuff is the dialogue and making convincing, interesting characters. And I think that Indiana Bell absolutely knocks that out of the park with this one. I love the dialogue in this film. I think that it really is engaging. There's a lot of really long monologues at points where people are kind of just talking about not just the situation and not just kind of, the darkness, but there's some humor put in there too at times. There's a little bit of that going back and forth between being charismatic and being dangerous. And I think that's really, really imperative that you do that when it comes to a thriller.
Yes. And, going into this film, when you have this idea of being at one location, it's just a lot of speaking between characters. We critiqued the film probably a month ago called Cold Meat. In that one, my critique was that, this could have easily been a short film just because there wasn't enough there. It was two characters in a car. In this one, two characters in a mobile home. But this one, they give you enough here that doesn't make it feel like this is a stretch to get a feature length film out of. It feels natural, and the way they go about it in terms of the dialogue, the ground that they do cover, and like you said, that kind of switching in tone is really seamless in here. Where at one moment you're it's a little lighthearted, and you feel like these characters are kind of trusting each other, but then we get right back into the tension, and there isn't this kind of hard stop where it feels like that. You don't even realize it, honestly, until you're actually feeling the tension that is coming back into the scene. And kudos to the writer here, because that's something that is really hard to pull off, but also just from the shot selections alone, where it's like sometimes directors can be a little stoic behind the lens, especially when you're in a setting like this where you're not really giving us a variety of different shots. And I got to say, even just from, a character at a sink, you are going from a wide range of shots, and you're really building that tension with those extreme close-ups, and then kind of going back out with some wider shots. I got to say, there was a big variety here, a lot of stuff to unpack, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. The shot composition was really well done. That I'm going to have to say I give a lot of props to both Indiana Bell and Josiah Allen, who is the second director here. I think they both really understood the tone and what they were trying to capture here. This is in a lot of ways. I said it to our buddy Evan on Monday's show when we were talking about just stuff off the air. I said to him, this movie, if I had to compare it to anything, and it's a broad comparison, but I think you'll get what I'm saying when I say it, is I'd compare this in a lot of ways to a much subtler version of The Lighthouse, where you just have two people stuck in, one place, very dialogue focused, very much two people who can't seem to trust each other. And I think that the best part about The Lighthouse is the best part about this is where you are constantly flipping back and forth. You just can't decide who's good, who's bad, or maybe it's a little bit of both. And, I think that is the best part of these contained thrillers. And they really aced that with this one.
Yeah, and the elements that they do drop in here, where at some points you're tense with our male character, and then you're tense with our female character, but then you also are wondering if they're going to drop that third element into it. As you're always looking at the trailer and those knocks at the door, you never really know what exactly is going to be happening or what kind of ride they're going to take you on. So I think at this, the hair on the back of your neck is always standing up because you don't know the twists and turns. And I got to be honest, as we're kind of settling into the dynamic here, and it's like, what really more can you do to add tension? They do drop a different element into this visually a little bit later on, and I think that was so well done, because when you're looking at this and the ride that they do take you on, you can easily see that as a writer, she stood back and said, what can we do to make the biggest use out of our setting? And it's from our characters, playing a game at a table, and it's extremely tense, and then it's lighthearted, then it's tense again. And then the other things that they do bring and they drop in, it's just visually beautiful. I think from a writing perspective, they really understood how to build that tension. And I think that is really rare nowadays when you're dealing with these one settings. And I think a lot of writers and directors kind of lean on that claustrophobic feel. And I think you do get that claustrophobia feel here, but it's in addition to everything else that is so well done around it.
I agree. Yeah. And, personally, I don't have a lot that I can say that I really dislike about the film, but there is an element to this that, if I'm going to be completely honest, I do think holds me back from giving it like a top score, from it really like acing everything. And that is simply this film being a contained thriller, being set with very limited characters, and what they set up. I was able to figure basically what was going on within probably, and I went back and checked, probably about the first 13 minutes. Once something gets brought up and gets put into play, that's where my sneaking suspicion starts, and I think it could go this way. And by the end of the film, it did. It's not bad, and it's not bad how they execute it. It's satisfying, it's nice, but I could easily see people being frustrated by the fact that they kind of figured the film out by the end there. I like the back and forth, but when it comes to ultimately what happens in the end, it is kind of like, okay, so you guys are doing that. Because like I had said to you, and I'll say this now, just because it's not a spoiler or anything related to the film, but I said to you off air, I was like, what if halfway through this movie you find out the dude's a werewolf? And like, he's on the run, he's hiding or whatever, and it's like because he changes and stuff. Like, that's where the excitement is. That's where my mind was racing. Like, I didn't know necessarily what this twist was going to be, which is great. But when you kind of fall back onto the first thing you guess, it does kind of leave you saying, oh, okay, yeah, that was good, it was fine.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, yeah, the twist that they give us, the ending that they do give us, I did see coming. And but I think it's one of those things where it doesn't necessarily hurt the film. Yes, it's some minor
Mhm.
critique for me, but I think, as we move toward the conclusion of the film, it's so well done in so many aspects that I think they more so go the route that is a little bit more traditional. And I think,
Mhm.
as we go throughout the film and you're seeing this more so as a thriller, I think they heighten up some of the horror aspects maybe a little bit toward like the last 15 minutes of it. And I think a film this well done throughout has certainly earned its stripes. That I think, yes, they went more of a traditional route, but I think, if you would have turned this up to 11 and really wanted to just go nuts with it, like that kind of tonal change that, where we see with like Barbarian or something like that. I think this more so earned its stripes, that if you wanted to do that, you could totally do it. But, they did play the safe route here. So it's a minor critique. Doesn't necessarily hurt the film. And I did go back and watch this a second time. And I will say there are a lot of little hints that when you watch it a second time and you know the actual story, it kind of pays off and is a little more gratifying because you can see that they're breadcrumbing throughout. And I think, as a writer myself and looking at those little subtle hints that they do drop and how it does pay off throughout the remainder of the film, I think makes you love it even more, even though they do go the traditional route. So minor critique, but I don't think it necessarily kills the film at all.
No, and see, that's the thing. Like, I could see it frustrating like general audiences who aren't as accepting of these and kind of looking for that something extra, looking for that next push. But I personally am excited to revisit this again. Like I said, I did a cursory watch through just to kind of more or less watch the first 15, 20 minutes to see, like, where did I get that sense? What was it that tipped me off? And when I was reminded of what it was, now that it was validated, it was probably much easier to tell.
Mhm.
But, so it is one of those things where, yeah, I think that as long as you understand that it isn't going to completely blow your mind, it's not there to really change the game under any sense. It's a really well told story with really great acting. I do want to point that out. I think our
Yes.
two leads here of Brendan Rock and Jordan Cohen are both fantastic. I think that Brendan Rock, again, we spoke about this off air. We saw a film called Beaten to Death last year, another Australian horror film, very much in that Wolf Creek kind of vein. We were both not the biggest fans of the film, but there was one actor in there. I forgot his name. I'll have to look it up here. But he was excellent. And we're just saying, damn, Australia really is just finding these hidden gem character actors. And Brendan Rock is another one. I mean, the dude absolutely kills it. And I think that the dynamic between Jordan Cohen here also fantastic. I mean, you said it earlier in the review where they just flip flop back and forth so well together that you sympathize for one and you're against the other, but then 2 seconds later you're on the other side of it. And I think they both really nailed their parts.
Yes, and I'll say, I mention it, and sometimes when we talk about certain actors, and there's a subtlety to the performance that is just absolutely charming and also terrifying. And I'll say Brendan Rock absolutely does bring that element to it. It's something where I would love to see him in even more stuff. And this is easily an actor that you can drop into a film like this, where it is one setting, it is dialogue heavy, and it is building a lot of tension. And I will say he thrives in it because you need a strong actor like that to really put a film and a dynamic like this on your shoulders. And I'll say both of these actors, they play off each other so well. They make you believe everything that they're saying, and they kind of heighten that tension that you want
Mhm.
in this. So I think the dynamic is absolutely phenomenal. There's a moment I brought it up earlier where they're just playing a card game, and you can just see them play off each other, and it's just so tension filled. And again, that's hard to capture, and they do it right here in a film that's a smaller budgeted film, but it doesn't feel that way at all.
Yeah, and I think I compared this to The Lighthouse earlier too, and I think one of the big things, probably my last thing, and then we'll get into final scoring here, is just the sound design too. This does take place during a storm. I absolutely adore the way they use the storm in this. I think that they really use it to build tension really well. It comes off very creepy, but it never comes off as being annoying or too much. It always feels like just the right amount of, force, I guess I could say, behind the sound design. And I really thought that it was a nice little element to add there, to add that creep factor. It adds a lot of that kind of classic horror vibe to this film, and it does ratchet up the tension in some of those scenes when things start getting intense. If you go back and watch it again, you'll notice it, where it's like the storm is getting even more intense as those scenes are. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, for me, this is a recommend. It's a very strong recommend. I do got to say that the predictability of the ending does kind of hurt it for me a little bit, in the sense of not giving it a perfect score. And I just think that the reason that I have to stick with that, and I know some people might call that a cop out, is just because I know there's going to be people who are going to be turned off by the ambiguity of the ending, which I enjoy, but also the predictability of the twist. And I think when you have those two together, I think you're going to turn some casual viewers off. But I really think this is going to find an audience, and I think that people are going to be really happy with it.
Yeah, and for me, as you talk about that kind of storm in the sound design there, it's a perfect element to add into this. It's very Edgar Allan Poe. I think this film is in more ways than one, like certain stories of his. And I think it works out so well. The focus on the ceiling, the focus on the door, it all plays so well with the close-ups, everything. It is really a complete film. And yes, I'm going to second recommend as well. Again, really strong recommend. I think I would have loved to see this go more of an untraditional route with its conclusion, just because I feel like the film earned it, and I think the writer's strong enough that we could have really went somewhere unique with this. So I think that only hinders it slightly, but this is a very strong recommend. It's something that when this is available, easily make some time for this one and check it out because it's easily worth your time.
Absolutely. And this will be available to stream on Shudder on March 22nd. But for you folks over down under in Australia, you guys can check this thing out this Thursday on the 14th. It's actually going to drop. So that's real exciting. I think that you guys should definitely go out and check this thing out. It's, again, very well done, very well polished. This is a first time feature for both these directors, and I think they knocked it out of the park. I would love to see what they tackle next. And I did say I'd get back to it. The actor from Beaten to Death I was complimenting is David Tracy. So I wanted to put some respect on that name. Absolutely fantastic. I think if you could get, Brendan Rock and David Tracy in a film together and just have them talking to each other in really intense scenes, it'd be pretty awesome. But yeah, I mean, also, again, I don't want to discount, Jordan Cohen here. She definitely has some pretty intense sequences. And, once we get to that third act and things start to get revealed, it gets pretty wild. But again, just wish they would have trusted themselves. Like you said, they earned their keep, they earned their stripes. I just wish that they would have had the confidence to really push the envelope a little bit more. But yeah, I still think that you guys should seek this out. It's a lot of fun. So definitely let us know down below if you got a chance to check out You'll Never Find Me, or if you're going to. And yeah, that's it for this one. Yeah, anyway, we got a lot of great stuff up on the channel right now. We do have a review that we just recently did on a film called The Followers. We weren't super huge on it. That was Screambox's offering for this month. We also checked out the latest Blumhouse horror, Imaginary, and I did get to check a little something out called T Blockers. So those are our most recent reviews, as well as some cool news stories. So other than that, it's going to wrap us up. So until next time, I am Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.
Do the horse shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, gonna smash your ass. 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 Splattercast, gonna smash your ass.